Hello again, everyone. Edwin Lord back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Michael K. Williams. First off, I want to offer my condolences and prayers to the family and close friends of Michael K. Williams. Michael K. Williams was an actor. For those of you that may not have known this, he was an actor on a series, I believe it's called The Wire. He was found dead in his apartment, I believe in New York City, from an apparent drug overdose. I don't know if that's been 100% confirmed or not. They don't believe, police don't see this as a foul play, so it likely was something that may have been inadvertent. I don't know if it was intentional, if it was suicide. But I want to talk about some natal placements and transits in his chart that may be connected with this. Now, I had to improvise once again because and do a solar/sunrise chart because I didn't have a time of birth for him. There was no chart with a time of birth for him on it on the web. At least I did not see it. Well, the first thing I want to talk about, I'm looking at his 12th house in the solar sunrise chart. He has Neptune in it, and the 12th house could be connected with endings. Neptune can be associated with drugs, with suicide, even though it's generational. Being in, Neptune, his natal Neptune is in Scorpio. I understand it's generational, but by itself, in some cases, I could see this manifesting in, really, a drug obsession. It could be a drug obsession because Neptune is associated with drugs. Scorpio is connected with fixated energy, obsessive energy, and it's at 22 degrees, which is a critical degree in astrology. 22, 21, and 22 degrees of the fixed signs are critical. He also has his sun, based on the solar sunrise time, it's at 29 degrees Scorpio. He could be a Sagittarius sun if he was born later in the day. My feeling is that he was a sun in Scorpio. He has a number of planets in water signs, and sadly, the water signs, as many of you may know, seems to have more of a propensity toward alcohol, toward recreational drug use. He has, looking at him, he's got 6 planets in water. Mercury, Neptune, the Sun based on the solar sunrise time. He has Saturn and the Moon in Pisces. That's actually 5 planets in water, and Chiron has got 5 planets in a very prominent asteroid, I would say Chiron, in Pisces. Now, going back to that 12th house with the Neptune in Scorpio in the 12th house, also, Neptune in the 12th, right there, could indicate where drugs could play a role in an ending. 12th house is a house of endings, and it's also the house of self-undoing as well, and that's where this may have manifested it in that manner. His his Neptune conjuncts his sun, so that's an indicator right there. That drugs can factor into one's life one way or another. And Neptune conjunct the sun is, conjunctions are neutral in astrology. They could have good and bad. That could be the life that was connected with filmography, and really, in a life with filmography that he might have been being in Scorpio, very obsessed with, and which he, and very passionate about, I would say as well, being in Scorpio, assuming his sun actually is in Scorpio. Again, not to be redundant, but it could be in Sagittarius if he was born later in the day. The thing too is he also has looking at his chart, he's got, and based on the solar sunrise time, one of the looking at the 12th house, one of the rulers, well, both of the rulers fall in the 12th. It puts Scorpio on the 12th house cusp in this solar sunrise chart. And the thing is, it puts one of the rulers of the, both the rulers of the 12th house of suicide and drugs and addiction fall in the 10th house, sadly, of notoriety and recognition. So that's an indicator that this was going to be something that was going to be well, publicized. And another thing too, looking at the chart as well, is that he does have, I'm looking at the fourth house, because the fourth house reflects the latter part of life, the end of life. Now, Pisces on the fourth house cusp can indicate there would maybe some addiction, drugs at the end of the life, and that might actually take one's life. The end of the life could be, the literal end of the life can be connected with something drug related. He has Chiron in Pisces in the fourth house of the end of life. Chiron in Pisces by itself can indicate suffering that's associated with drugs. And there might have been, looking at this, well, Saturn is in Pisces in the fourth house as well. Saturn can be about chronic debilitation. Now, I don't know if he had anything that would be associated, with problems with the feet or the toes or the lymphatic system or anything Pisces related, but Saturn can be about difficulties, and it can be, Pisces again can be, can be connected with drug use, with drugs, and the fact that it conjoins his Chiron, it could indicate more sorrow, more despondency in connection with it. I wonder if maybe there was something, there might have been some depression going on with this drug use, because Saturn can be about sorrow and despondency and dejection. He also had, based on the solar sunrise chart, he has Saturn, transit Saturn. It looks like it's very close to the third house cusp. And when you have transit Saturn hitting the third house, this is something where the thinking can become very negative, pessimistic, and even sometimes even depression can impact the rational thinking. Saturn, transit Saturn being in Aquarius, that's connected with goals and aspirations. It could be matters with friendships that might have been affecting him. I don't really know this, but I speculate it may have been something with that based on the transit. Now, and also the solar sunrise time puts the moon in Pisces. And I don't mean, he could have had an Aries moon if he was born at a rather late time in the day. And based on the solar sunrise chart, the moon in Pisces opposes Pluto. And that could sometimes indicate or manifest in an over-obsession or extremism in connection with the emotional needs. If he was a habitual or chronic drug user, that could be, an indicator where there could have been even more, obsession with it, and more extreme, energy connected with that. Another thing is that he has one of the rulers of the fourth house of the end of life falls in the 12th house in the solar sunrise chart. Right there by itself, that can indicate limitations or restrictions in the end or latter part of life. It could also indicate that latter part of life being connected with drugs, with addiction perhaps, with suicide. And another thing too is, looking at a chart based on the solar sunrise time, the chart for the solar sunrise chart for Michael K. Williams, it puts the zodiac sign Cancer in the 8th house cusp. That could be an indicator of a death in the home. The ruler of the moon falls in the 4th house, and that's another indicator of the death. The 8th house is associated with death, of course. The 4th house is associated with the home. Based on the solar sunrise time, the moon being in Pisces, a death associated, well, likely it appears to be with drugs. Now, transit Neptune was in the 4th house, and that's another indicator of the end of life coming through something drug related. Transit Neptune was also very close to his natal Chiron. It looks like it likely was a conjunction to it. Again, not to be redundant, that's just still another indicator of suffering that through drugs, perhaps at the end of one's life. And it's terrible. I mean, in this case, I mean, you look at the chart, and it's just it's like eerie how these transits and natal placements correlate with his ending, sadly. And this is just an example when you see something like this, where you could be a renowned actor, you could be a famous person, a celebrity, a prolific sports athlete, and there's a lot of times with these people, there's things that we don't know about. There's some kind of, there might be some adversity, some tribulation they've had to cope with. And if he is indeed a sun in Scorpio, there'll probably be a number of things that we still won't know about his life, because of course the sun can be connected with one's life. Scorpio is very mysterious and secretive. That would be a vast understatement. Hold on a moment, people. Well, I will say one thing. I mean, as far as going off on old Gemini moon tangent here and looking at something that was auspicious for his acting, I noticed that he has a very good placement, which obviously could, be good luck and could be very fortuitous for doing doing something with the arts and acting. He's got Jupiter in Leo, making a trine, fairly close trine, it looks like, to his Venus in Sagittarius. Venus can be associated with the arts, being in Sagittarius, the sign connected with luck and fortune. Then it's trining Jupiter, the planet of prosperity, and also associated with luck in a sign associated with acting in Leo. And it falls in the 8th house, near the 9th house. The fact that it's close to the 9th house tells me that this is something where he could get, some global recognition, I would say. And the 8th house is the house of power. So, I mean, this is something too, and it might have been something that it's an indicator too, besides the Scorpio energy. 8th house, you could say, is the house of obsession as well, where he can be, where something that he put a lot of relentless obsessive energy into. Likely Jupiter in Leo by itself can be fortuitous for acting. So he does. I mean, that aspect right there is a good indicator for that. He also has Venus. Venus in Sagittarius is conjunct his sun as well, so that shows where he was able to shine in the arts, which can include acting. Again, Venus being in Sagittarius, a sign of luck and fortune. Neptune conjunct the sun can be also could actually be favorable for a life that is connected with film, with cinema, in theater. So there is a lot of I could see the indicators in the chart for this. In the solar sunrise chart, he has Aries on the 5th house cusp. The ruler of that, Mars, falls in the 10th house of career, notoriety, and recognition. 5th house is the house of acting and entertainment. Puts it on in the 10th house, again, of recognition, notoriety, the career. That ruler conjuncts Uranus. Mars conjuncts Uranus. Mars is the ruler of the 5th house, conjoins Uranus. Uranus is associated with television. So I could see why he was successful, and he flourished as an actor. So, I mean, there's really a number of indicators for that. And only one last thing I wanted to, I noticed looking at the chart as well, is that when I look at, there's an aspect with the North Node in Taurus in the 6th house of work, and Taurus can have a connection with the arts, and I would say can have a connection with acting as well. And this is where, I mean, the North Node is making looks like it's making an opposition to his Neptune in his chart. And when you have, I mean, you're talking about Neptune again being connected with drugs, and opposing the North Node, your future and being in Taurus in the 6th house of employment, and showing that persistence and employment being the North Node, and Taurus, your future being connected with that, and a stability in your employment. You could see where the drugs could have possibly had had a conflict with that. He may have been able to persist as an actor even while doing drugs if he was a chronic user, but it might have caused more difficulty in him actually doing so. I would say for one reason because of that opposition from the North Node in Taurus to Neptune in Scorpio. So those are some things to look at as far as his chart, far as the chart goes. So those are some. It's really again, it's a terrible thing when you hear about people passing away, and you have this actor who was like 53, or I don't know what. Well, he was born in 1966, so I guess that would make him 54. He was born November 22nd, 54 years old, very relatively young age to pass away. But I don't think I have too much more to say about anything as far as anything with natal placements or transits. He was going through his Mars return at this time, and it was in Virgo, the sign of employment. You'd say Virgo can also be connected with health as well. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Leonard saying stay well.